Brother Shualian, be careful. This is the human race I mentioned to you before. Mitian reminded softly while looking at Yang Kai coldly. The monster race cultivator called Shualian frowned, looked at Yang Kai grinningly, and said, this is the human race who killed your two thunder flame flying lizards. He doesn't look very good. He didn't put Yang Kai to his eyes with a contemptuous expression. Mitian laughed. If Brother Shualian looked down on him because he is a human race, that would be a big mistake. Seems to be a little different from those human race on Monster Emperor Star. I haven't seen you for more than 10 years. Where did your spirits and guts go, Mitian? You regard a human race so highly, I don't know what to say. If my cart beast was killed, he would never live to see the sun the next day. Mitian, you can't do it anymore. From now on, this Monster Emperor Star will be the world of this Shualian. Shualian didn't seem to take Mitian seriously, and ridicule him. He didn't mean to be angry, but he smiled and said, I just remind you, whether you listen is up to you, hee hee. Two strong monster race, they talk and did not lower their voice. Yang Kai naturally heard them clearly. Can't help but look at the cultivator called Shualian with interest, and a strange expression appeared. This Shualian seems like a really big deal, otherwise how could he dare to talk to Mitian like that? He knew that Mitian was the little young master of Lord Thousand Eyes, and he was well known on the entire Monster Emperor Star. He could sit on an equal footing with him, and even criticized and mocked him mercilessly. What is the origin of this Shualian? However, his cultivation level is not weaker than that of Mitian, and he is also a powerhouse of the Third Order Void Return stage. What's the matter with you two? Yanka's face was full of smiles. The expression in his eyes was slightly cold, and he asked faintly. It's naturally something to come here. Shualian grinned and looked at Yang Kai disdainfully, but you are not qualified to talk to this young master and ask that human race woman's surnamed Sha to come out and see me. Want to see little senior sister? Yang Kai smiled and shook his head. It might not be convenient. Little senior sister is doing alchemy and won't see anyone. No? Shualian said with a sharp look, and coldly snorted, that can't be enough for her. Since this young master is here, even if she can't see me, she has to see me. Mitian stood behind Shualian. He smiled and agreed. Brother Shualian came this time to find that girl to refine alchemy. Well, I heard that her alchemy skills are really good. Brother Shualian has prepared the medicinal materials. As long as she refining it, it will be done. Alchemy is fine. Yang Kai nodded. You don't need to tell my little senior sister about this little thing. I agreed on her behalf and handed me the medicinal materials. Then you went back and waited some time. Mitian raised his brows, and Shualian sneered, I gave you the medicinal materials, what are you? This young master heard that you are just a little whiteface who depends on a woman for food. Tell the woman to get out and see me. A small human race servant dared to put up the score in front of this young master, and be careful that I smash her. The smile on Yang Kai's face receded leisurely, his eyes narrowed, and he suddenly revealed a cruel and unfeeling meaning. You just scolded my senior sister? You are deaf. What if I scold her? Nothing. You will pay the price. Yanka's tone was cold, and he didn't see any movement, but the whole person suddenly appeared not far in front of Shualian, slammed a punch, slammed at the front of his face, and his fist was infused with Saint Yuan, bursting out. The other party was obviously here to find trouble, and Yang Kai didn't plan to continue talking with him. Shualian was taken aback. He didn't see Yanka's movements at all, and he felt a sharp murderous intent in front of him. He roared in a hurry and threw a punch to meet him. His eyes were full of anger and teasing. Yang Kai's sudden move really surprised him. No human race has ever been so bold and daring to take the initiative against him. But this human race is a little overwhelmed, actually trying to use his physical power to contend with himself. Even in the Monster Emperor Star, the physical strength of his own bloodline is top-notch, and even many powerful monster race are beyond the reach, let alone a human race. He made an all-out effort, thinking that Yang Kai would be crushed to pieces by himself. Boom. The two fists touched in the void, and the void seemed to collapse in an instant, and there was a circle of visible ripples around it, and spreading fiercely to the surroundings. Xianxia's body shook, and his brows were raised, looking a little surprised. Shui Lian's eyes widened, and an unbelievable look appeared. With the collision of the punches, both of them felt the ferocity transmitted from the other side, and both felt that the other side was not easy to provoke. The tremendous strength drove the two back a few steps back at the same time, and finally stabilized their figure. "It's amazing." Mi Tian praised him without hesitation. At the moment when Xianxia made a move, he gracefully floated to the distance, and after standing firm, he happened to see the collision of the two in his eyes. He was surprised. Although he has always felt that in terms of overall strength, he is superior to Shui Lian, but if he fights for physical strength alone, he is ashamed. After all, the bloodline of Shui Lian is not comparable to him. It is based on tenacity and violent, known for its power. If he fights alone with the Shui Lian, he will avoid contact and collision with the opponent's body as much as possible, and attack the enemy with his own strengths. But this guy named Xianxia actually matched the Shui Lian. No one seemed to take advantage of this first blow, and no one suffered. His expression became solemn, and he immediately understood that Xianxia was able to kill his two thunder flame flying lizards in Shining Moon City in that way. It was not just an accidental outbreak, he really had this ability. Here is a good show. Mi Tian suddenly became excited, his eyes moved up, and he glanced at a position 1,000 feet away. Over there, Yu Shang was holding his arms, standing happily on the roof of a palace, looking down here from a high level, with a triumphant expression on his face, and aware of Mi Tian's gaze, he stretched out his hand and raised it. After greeting, he watched with Mi Tian. "Interesting, your human race is a bit interesting." Shui Lian looked at Xianxia up and down, with a taste of re-examining him, and shouted, "Come again." When the voice fell, a layer of blood suddenly appeared on his body. The blood was rich and red, full of evil aura. Enveloped by this blood, the aura of Shui Lian suddenly skyrocketed. He took a big step and rushed towards Xianxia. Every step caused the earth to tremble, leaving deep footprints on the ground. With the footprints as the origin, the surrounding ground splits into dense gaps like spider webs. Xianxia was instantly enveloped by a wave of murderous intent. Murderous intent is like the essence, cutting his body like a blade. The cold aura makes people feel scared, and want to stay away from that murderous intent. It is inevitable for Xianxia to avoid it, so he does not want to avoid it. There was a low, muffled roar from his throat, like a mad beast, fleshy muscles swelled, and a crackling sound from the bones, and his own imposing manner skyrocketed, attacking the ubiquitous murderous intent around him, bringing this intangible thing. "Stir it into powder." Shui Lian rushed to Xianxia, and his fists fell like raindrops, mixed with the power of destroying the sky and the earth, and greeted Xianxia. Xianxia didn't seem to have the intention to evade, letting the opponent's attack fall on him. His two iron fists also fought back at the vital point of Shui Lian. Bang bang bang. The constant muffled noise made the scalp numb, sometimes mixed with the snoring of two people. Xianxia never showed his defeat, but instead came and went with Shui Lian, fighting in full swing. Mi Tian was moved. Yu Shang opened his mouth wide, and the green-clothed servant girl lost the ability to think. Her beautiful eyes tremblingly looked at all this. She had always thought that Xianxia was nothing more than a soft meal, shameless and faceless. She secretly felt sorry for Xianxia, and felt that Xianxia's vision was really problematic. The best and outstanding men in the world are many, how could she choose such a man? But now, she finally understands that this man who she regards as worthless has his own shining side. Just for the sake of her own woman, he dared to go head-to-head with young Master Shui Lian. It is already dazzling. Such a handsome man. The strength and physical body that Shui Lian was proud of failed to play a half-suppressing effect in front of Xianxia, and the opponent's attainments in this field were clearly on par with him. The pupils were cold and sharp like the anger of a bloodthirsty monster beast. In the world of fists and feet, Xianxia was entangled with Shui Lian, fighting with physical strength. Every blow was shocking, and the power was surging like a sea. Between Xianxia and Shui Lian, there was violent power splashing into the void, and the pure physical power still sublimated, turning into an inexplicable mood, covering the two together. Even strong men like Mitian and Yu Shang can't distinguish the specific situation in the battlefield. They only saw their bodies move up and down, heard a blast, and felt the terrifying power of a blow. Bloody battle. Shui Lian roared, and his voice was full of rage. Xianxia also looked like a madman. The two people who met for the first time seemed to regard each other as enemies of life and death. The eyes of both of them burst into red light. Intriguing. People are frightened and afraid to face it. The two figures are entangled together, bombarding each other wildly, just like a brash man who has never cultivated before, without using any other power, just wanting to dominate each other in this field. During the burst of light like meteors flying by, it is gorgeous and intoxicating. This kind of rough and simple fighting method has always been dismissed by the cultivators, but at this moment, this kind of rough fighting shines under the hands of the two. Any kind of power cannot be underestimated when it is cultivated to the extreme. The more Shui Lian fight, the more frightened he get. He had never thought that a human race could actually fight with him in the fight of physical power. He bombarded Xianxia's fist with all his strength, as if he had touched the strongest rock, and there was a sound of gold and iron clashing. The strength of Xianxia's flesh made him feel like he was facing a body of gold and iron, not flesh and blood. How could this be possible? Even the monster race, which is known for its physical strength, could not be compared with his own bloodline. How does a human race do this? Is he still human? To be continued.